Good evening, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Adishri Jamkhetkar. I am the program manager for the German Center for Research and Innovation here in New Delhi, also known as DWIH New Delhi. And I welcome all of you to this Science Circle lecture today on making a difference in artificial intelligence, why India and Germany should be partners, where this question will be answered by Professor Dr. Martin Hoffmann-Apicius to us. Welcome to all the participants. Thank you so much for joining in. If you are seeing us live, you will be able to interact with us and the speakers and the speaker via the chat option below. Please drop in your questions or if you have comments or any technical difficulties, please mention them in the chat. We will take up the questions after the talk and the team in the background will also be able to assist you. This lecture is organized in close cooperation with the Fraunhofer office in India and the Embassy of Federal Republic of Germany. A short word on the DWIH. It promotes the German research landscape and enhances research cooperation between India and Germany. And it's a platform for exchange and networking between Indian academic entrepreneurs and scientific stakeholders in research and innovation. We have here two special guests today. Mr. Philipp von Ritter, who's the head of the science section at the German Embassy here in New Delhi. Thank you so much for joining us, Philipp. And Ms. Iyer, who is the director and head of Fraunhofer's India office. She is going to chair the session later on, the panel discussion, and will also take up your questions. I will now hand it over to Philipp for a short welcome address. And then, Ms. Iyer, you can take it over from there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anandi. So it's a huge pleasure for me to participate in today's Science Circle lecture on a topic that is hugely relevant for Indo-German cooperation as a whole. Because looking at the bigger picture, science cooperation for India and Germany is an extremely important element of the relations between our countries. And that is also seen in the field of health, which is a focus today. And I think we've seen it also quite impressively over the past months, where, of course, the surge, the wave of the corona pandemic in India has made it necessary for international solidarity to bring in immediate relief. And as friends and partners of India, Germany, we have, of course, also participated to that. But at the same time, I think the cooperation, even on such urgent issues as the corona pandemic, immediately also continued on scientific issues. So immediately we also had dialogues on genome sequencing, on seeing how the new variants, how they have new properties and how we can analyze this shift in the virus population. So all this only to tell you that, yes, so India and Germany, you should think of science cooperation. And this is also, of course, especially the case for the topic of artificial intelligence. Everybody in the world knows we have to understand all the applications of artificial intelligence as soon as possible and understand how we can use them to our benefit, to the benefit of mankind. And India and Germany have also taken a strong resolve to work together in this. And that is why artificial intelligence was on top of the agenda at the 2019 government consultations. And that is why also at these government consultations, there was an agreement to start a dialogue and to start with a workshop where experts from both countries should meet to pinpoint down these fields where our cooperation can be most meaningful and effective. And now, unfortunately, this workshop has not yet taken place, which is a shame, but was unavoidable due to the circumstances. But if I want at all costs to see one advantage in that, then that's that we can have this Science Circle lecture even before this workshop, and that what we discussed today can inform than even the design of that workshop. And I think a third point that I want to mention is it's very important that the Indian and German government are interested in science cooperation and are interested to apply science cooperation to new and promising fields like artificial intelligence. But the real work is only done by the scientists themselves and by the scientific institutions. And today, with Professor Hoffmann-Apicius, such a renowned expert, we have an incredible example of that, and we have an incredible example of strong institutions like the Fraunhofer institutes are one. So the Fraunhofer Gesellschaft with all the institutes, they are really one of the most wonderful tools that we have to support applied science in Germany, but also everywhere in the world. And also very strongly in India. And there I'm hugely thankful to Anandi Iyer for all the work that she's been doing for so many years. And I look very much forward to all the work that we will continue to be doing. But first, I look forward to the discussions, to everything that we get out of this that will be immediately relevant for our work as the embassy, but also for the work of all these researchers, scientists, and administrators that have joined today for this poll. And with this, I hand back to you, Adishi.
Thank you so much, Philip. I can say that Anandi, you can take it over from here. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Adishri, and thank you very much, Philip. Pleasure to see you again after a long hiatus. And thank you so much for your kind words on Fraunhofer and the work that we do, whether in Germany or elsewhere in the world, and particularly in India. I think Fraunhofer is committed to India because we really feel that we have a role to play here and a value proposition that we bring to the table. So thank you for all your support that you have extended to us through the embassy and through your network. Ladies and gentlemen, a good day to you wherever you're joining in from. Hold on to your seats because today it's going to be a firecracker of a session. It's a pleasure for me to share this session on two counts. One, because artificial intelligence is a topic I've been working very closely on for the last 2 to 3 years, trying to see where is the convergence between India and Germany to come together in a very win-win kind of a situation. But secondly, also, and more importantly, it's an opportunity to present my good friend and an outstanding professional, Martin, who is extremely passionate about this subject. And he's a straight off the bat speaker, does not hold his punches. So I assure you it's going to be extremely interesting to listen to him and to debate with him as I normally do, and I love doing that. Philip has already laid out the contours of AI and Germany's focus on this topic and the potential, the immense potential for collaboration between the two countries. Fraunhofer has been extremely focused on AI and its applications in various fields, whether it's agriculture, production, health. And you might know that there is also a great initiative that has come up in the Aachen-Bonn-Cologne area, which is called the ABC, with more than 1,000 scientists, not only from Fraunhofer, but other scientific institutions that are working together to accelerate research in this field. With regard to the scope of Indo-German collaboration, I just like to say a couple of points which we should keep in our mind while listening to this speech by Martin. Germany and India really have complementary strengths as far as artificial intelligence goes. There have been other topics where we have collaborated, where either Germany had a lot to give or India had a lot to give, but this is a topic where we come in on an equal partnership. Germany and India have similar value systems. We both follow the social democratic model of governance. Germany is a world leader in engineering and product development, and India has extreme skills in software and IT. Data is the new oil. Germany has stringent laws on data generation and dissemination, while India has a vibrant diversity of data and also a more pragmatic approach to data sharing. The two countries can really leverage their respective strengths for mutual benefit. India is also one of the largest markets of the global economy, while Germany, the consumption is slightly stagnating. India has more than 60% of its population below the age of 40. And don't forget, human capital is going to be centerpiece for AI. And Germany has an aging population. So if two countries come together in a win-win alliance, I think we will be able to put ourselves in a very strong position on the world stage. So without much ado, let me introduce our special guest speaker. Actually, it would take more than an hour to introduce him, but I will reduce it to the basic requirements that you need to know about him. He holds a PhD in molecular biology and has worked for more than 10 years in experimental molecular biology before he moved to computational biology. The screening of novel genes involved in tumor metastasis led him into the area of functional genomics and subsequently to applied bioinformatics. He has experience like any good Fraunhofer professional, both in the academic side and the industry side, having worked with the University of Heidelberg, the Forschungszentrum Karlsruhe, the DKFC, which is a German cancer research center, and industry, which is BASF, Boehringer Ingelheim, and Lion Bioscience AG. Since 2002, he's leading the Department of Bioinformatics at Fraunhofer Institute of Algorithms and Scientific Computing in St. Augustine. And he has been a professor for applied research, applied science, life science informatics at Bonn-Aachen International Center for Information Technology. Martin is an author of more than 175 scientific publications. His major contributions were in the cloning and identification of CD44V, the first gene that mediates metastatic potential to tumor cells, the functional annotation of the mouse transcriptome, and information extraction methodology used for semi-automated generation of the first comprehensive computational cause and effect model for Alzheimer's disease. I can tell you a lot more about what he has done, but I think you can yourself hear him and enjoy this session. Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Anandi. Seriously, I do hope that Philip and everybody else is still as excited and positive about my talk that I will give after you heard what I have to say. And to a certain extent, it will be a bit provocative, in particular for people who are working in politics. But anyway, let me share my slides. As said, my name is Martin Hofmann-Apicius, and it's a great pleasure and honor to talk to you today, in particular because I love the German-Indian collaborations, the various. I love the country. I love to be in India, and a good part of my team is actually coming from India, by the way. Fraunhofer, just for those who haven't heard about Fraunhofer, which shouldn't be the case, but in any case, let me briefly recapitulate. We are focusing on applied research. There's a huge number of institutes in the meanwhile. We have almost 30,000 employees in Fraunhofer. The budget is now crossing the 3 billion euro line, and typically we work, and that's a difference to all the other research organizations in Germany. We work based on an institutional funding of only 25 to 30%. And our mission is to really translate excellent academic research into application. And that's why 75% of our funding actually needs to come from third parties. This is where I work. We have our own little castle, which of course is occupied by administration and not by scientists. The scientists sit in these more, functional buildings here. This is where administration and then lawyers sit. I will come back to lawyers later on. We are the biggest center actually for applied mathematics and computer science in Germany. This is here, the figure is where I do my teaching. This is at Bonn University, a new campus. It's an international curriculum with actually quite a strong participation of students and excellent students coming from India. It's in the life science informatics curriculum, which is a blending of cheminformatics, bioinformatics, and medical informatics. So what will I be talking about? I will briefly recapitulate what AI is and what is the promise of AI, and then we dive a bit into politics and national AI roadmaps, in particular the German and the Indian roadmap. Will shed some light on business cases, and in particular the value chain behind AI-enabled data economies. And then I want to look into the future and talk a little about what would be necessary to enable a data economy, in particular an AI-enabled data economy. And how do we put citizens really into the center? So AI, why should we bother? Because, it is all over the place. And Anandi and everybody of the speakers was alluding to that AI actually is one of the hottest topics currently in science, and all areas of science and technology are influenced by AI. We often see that AI, artificial intelligence, is synonymously used with data science or with machine learning. And I try to, in this picture here, I try to give you a feeling for what really is always part of data science and artificial intelligence. The core is always in the machine learning field, and deep learning is part of machine learning. Has revolutionized a part of the way how we approach machine learning problems, and has brought new ways of performance in the artificial intelligence, in the prediction, for instance, or with recommendation engines, in decision support, or in robotics, that were unparalleled and that were simply not possible before. You see that in the wider context of artificial intelligence, we have things like linguistics and language synthesis, so understanding speech or analyzing speech, which is something that is now also quite en vogue in the medical field as a diagnostic or early diagnostic tool. Knowledge graphs are essentially specialized graph systems representing knowledge, and despite the fact that we always talk about data in the AI context, we should give as much attention to knowledge and representations and what you can do with knowledge graphs in the field. The data scientist box here has one particular aspect which actually has a lot of influence or impact on artificial intelligence, but is largely ignored in the discussion, which is all the data retrieval, data preprocessing, data wrangling, data curation field. And I will come back to that in a minute. Now, when we look at what is the enabling of AI, what is the promise? What can you do with it? There are these famous, fancy examples where an AI model has been trained with a lot of pictures of aging people, or people where snapshots have been taken every year or every 5 years or every 10 years. And if your training set is large enough, you can actually learn how a face changes with aging, and then you can apply that to a new person that has never been aged, because it's actually the person who is right now, as I speak, in this state here in a younger age, and we can even predict and simulate how you will look in decades from now. And that's actually working quite well, and the performance of these models are extremely good in the meanwhile. AI has also been, and that has been mentioned already in the COVID-19, in the pandemic context, has been quite successful, or quite promising at least, when it came to predict potential new drugs, those drugs that are already existing and that are being repurposed, that are being reused against the SARS-CoV-2 virus. That's something where in former times we would have talked about chemoinformatics approaches and maybe machine learning approaches. Now we call everything AI, but in principle, it is exactly the same. The cool thing is that now the people who are doing AI are regarded as ultra cool, you know, doing an ultra cool job. So the branding of the AI topic is really making a fantastic job um, in declaring data scientists, the people who are actually working with AI methods, with machine learning methods, as the sort of Chippendale dancers of science and technology. And the Harvard Business Review said that to be a data scientist is the sexiest career of the 21st century. Love to hear that, because we educate young data scientists quite in numbers. There's one sentence that I want to draw your attention to, which is, because if there's one thing that gives a job an indefinable allure, it is everybody else being kind of unsure what it is you really do, a quality that data scientists damn near embody. So exactly, it's all fuzzy, the definitions are fuzzy, and everybody who was a clinical statistician calls himself now a data scientist, just in order to be sexy. I have a lot of understanding for that as I grow older. What is really now the learning? What is the promise of AI? And a lot of you may already know that, but let me briefly recapitulate. You have typically a data pipeline where you do what I just call data wrangling. This is the retrieval, the exploration, finding out whether this is the right data, whether the data are in a sufficient amount, whether they have all the variables you need, and so on. You want to clean them, you want to merge them, you want to impute, and all that. This is called data wrangling and data preprocessing. You have the machine learning pipeline, where you take the data that are ready for machine learning, for AI. You typically split them in train and test sets, or you have independent test sets, which is even better, and have sufficient data for training, train a statistical learning model or in a neural network. In some cases, in most cases still, you do sort of hyperparameter tuning and optimization of the model. You evaluate the model based on the test set. And then once you're satisfied with the performance, and there are special approaches for testing the performance of AI models, you package the model, you bring it into some sort of environment, an app or a software program, some service, and you bring it into production. And once you produce with that, you can actually use the real world application of your AI model to generate new data and to run or to do the next iteration of the optimization of the model. So that is typically actually where people are fascinated of. And when you look into the scenery, the AI scenery, people talk about this here, the machine learning pipeline, this level. This is what is interesting for them. And the software code, yeah, you need that, of course, but it's something where sometimes you even outsource also. In the science field, the focus is on machine learning pipeline. And this is also where in the communication, in the PR communication, we see the spotlight on the machine learning, the AI. This is the cool part, therefore. You know, this one is the cool stuff, the machine learning, the algorithms, the tuning, the gradual improvement of the modeling approach, and faster and with better performance in the end. Nobody is really interested in this here. This is the boring stuff. This is where the data come from. Do we have sufficient data? Are the data of sufficient quality? What do we have to do to bring the data into shape so that they can be used for the cool stuff here? And this is likewise in communications to the outside, to politics or so. People are talking about this machine learning pipeline and the prediction and the nice application examples as I've shown them a minute ago. However, when you look into reality of what data scientists spend their time for, then you find that they are about 80% of the time they they invest is on collecting data and cleaning and organizing data. And that's a experience all those amongst you who are working really in data science and AI, I think they would subscribe to that. Pretty sure. At least we have exactly those numbers, and I give you an example in a minute, that this partitioning is true. This is here, the smaller part. The way smaller part is the training set building, the modeling, refining algorithms, improving algorithms, and so on, tuning. But the tedious stuff is the cleaning and the organization of data. This is where the true challenge is before you can even start with the cool AI. The not so funny thing is that, 78% of the sexiest job of the 21st century is no fun at all, because 79%, almost 80%, is characterized by the people who are working in that field as the least enjoyable part of data science and AI. So we spend much more time on the least enjoyable part, the donkey work, as I call it sometimes in our field. What we communicate to the outside is, hey, we have done cool stuff here and this algorithm, and it's a VA MBN, which is a variational autoencoder modular Bayesian network. This is something that my AI team is doing now, and they work over time and so on. But the tedious stuff that they have to do to get their VA MBNs running is actually this here. So how does politics see AI? Politics looks exactly at the same, the promises for society. India called the roadmap paper AI for All. In Germany, we have a strategy, a national strategy that is all called AI Made in Germany. France wants to save the world, AI for humanity, and China wants to rule the world, AI leader of the world. This is different perceptions. There's more than 50 different national strategies, and typically when you look at them, they are all pretty much high level, and they are all focusing on my little red line. The area that I marked in red, the algorithmic pipeline. So when we really dig into the details of the AI for All paper by Niti Aayog, which was published already 2 years ago or so, there's a lot of expectations and promise. What you always find is, that AI will make things better, that we need the right people with the right training for that, and that we need to collaborate, of course, that we need to have partnerships. And AI for All means technology leadership in AI for achieving the greater good. So this is a pretty abstract declaration, and you find that all over the place in different strategy papers. In the Indian, what raised concerns on my side was that in the Indian strategy, they then later on stated, efforts from private sector may neither be financially optimal nor efficient on a standalone basis, and hence sustained government intervention to tackle the existing challenges and constraints is needed. So what you see here is the statement of a state administration, people in politics and political administration who believe they know better what AI can really do and what it should be doing. So that's why I say India's approach to implementation of AI has to be guided by optimization of social goods rather than the maximization of top-line growth, which means, I'm a liberal by heart. That is something that sounds much more than like socialism than really something that is where all the power of AI is unleashed, actually to exactly maximize growth and profit. It's not any better with the German AI roadmap. You find a lot of high level goals, like always sustainable, of course, the sustainable development goals, the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda, whatever sustainable means there. And everything needs to be, defined in the context of responsibility to respect human rights and so on, as if AI algorithms would be a threat to human rights. And there's a lot of anticipation of negative effects, actually. To be fair, I should say that the German roadmap contains a lot of aspects that obviously aim at talking and discussing and projecting the economic impact of AI. But it is all contextualized again and again with ecological and social development. And one of the highlights, in the medical field of the German roadmap is cited here, where they say in the US, especially in the Bay Area, important topics of the future, such as AI, robotics, and digital platforms, are being shaped at an unprecedented scale worldwide. That is true. Why is that? Because they have the right strategy in the US? I doubt that. I think they have unleashed the power of innovation, entrepreneurship. But what Germany does is they have established a contact point where people are sitting to organize, visits of ministries, institutions, and individuals from Germany. And then in the next sentence, they say, to successfully develop and shape AI, national measures tend not to be sufficient. For this reason, the federal government will continue to closely dovetail its activities with the measures of the EU and other international actors. So in order to understand the problem or the challenge, and in particular the innovation and societal challenges, we expand the discussion to the EU and to international actors. But the driver actually in the Bay Area is nothing of this sort of interaction and talking about things or visiting. It is about unleashing the entrepreneurial power of the Bay Area. And that's what is happening there. So when I look at the shortcomings from my point of view in the Indian and German AI strategies is, one is AI stays abstract and it's largely believed to be dependent on algorithms. And we know better. We know really better. I've shown you that 80% of the investment goes into organizing data, getting them into shape. That means the perspectives of data generation, in particular generation of high quality data in large amounts, is largely ignored by the national roadmaps. And not only in Germany and India, it's actually all over the place. The option to make everybody, each citizen, individual, a data producer, somebody who can trade his or her data, is completely ignored. It's completely forgotten. We are all, what I carry here is a smartwatch that is measuring my heart rate whilst I'm speaking here, producing lots of quantified self type of data, and the world is full of that. Yeah, and I am a data producer currently. I use this data only for myself, but we could actually trade and sell the data. They are not much worth. The commercial value of this is negligible. But I show you in a minute what you have to do to increase the value of that. The rules and mechanisms of a new data economy enabled by AI are not projected in neither of the national AI strategies. I'm talking about a data economy, not about what AI should be doing for a better good. I'm talking economy uses AI and AI-enabled information and knowledge access and actionable insights to generate better products and to have better strategies in financial markets. The role of entrepreneurship and freedom of entrepreneurs for this new data economy is not understood and is not really outlined. The necessity of freedom with the mature citizen, which we call in German mündiger Bürger, in the center is not defined at all. In fact, what you see in all these roadmaps is that the government takes a role of a defender of privacy, autonomy, and treats citizens as little children that need to be protected of the unknown, the anticipated threats of AI. However, AI will grow strongest where data are accessible. We have seen that, and I mean, I'm in the business now for 30 years. I've seen that again and again and again. The data access, high quality data access, business models to trade and to share data are key, and that drives the business models on AI based on the available data. And this fact, which is very, very stringent, this effect of availability of data drives algorithm development and application development. This is something you can see all over the place, and this concept is missing from both the Indian and the German strategy. The Germans have then a tendency to blow up the challenge. They write a lot of reports and recommendations. And again, there's data ethics involved. I have some respect for the need of politics to address these questions, but they are so much in the center, and the commercial and the innovative aspects and the future promise of AI is so little taken into account that I find that rather unbalanced what we see. We have a German advisory council on global environmental change making statements on AI and the digital future, whereas in our roadmap, we just mentioned with one sentence that various industry associations have also published recommendations for action for the policy towards AI. That's all. So this is grossly and largely imbalanced, and it does not really aim at projecting a perspective for the promise what you can actually do with AI for everybody. So what is it what you can do? Now, let's look at the market capitalization of the largest digital companies, and they are all US companies. Most of them are US companies. They are called internet companies, and you see that Amazon has a market cap of 1.5 trillion. And Alphabet is still over $1 trillion, and Facebook is close to $1 trillion. So 733 billion is the market capitalization of Facebook alone, and even a video streaming portal like Netflix is in the range of $250 billion. Why are those companies called internet companies? I would call them AI companies, because all these companies now are analyzing the data they have. The data, what you purchase, what you search, what you share with others, and what you stream, they analyze all that with AI. And it's a matter of fact that the most leading labs, AI labs, sponsored by industry, are the Google labs, for instance, the DeepMind lab at UCL in London, and so on. So what was a digital business and internet business before is now very soon an AI business, and it's an AI business with the content that drives the AI development. Yeah, all the image recognition, all the image classification tasks, and so on. It's not surprising that Google was pushing that. And that brings me to the fundamental of data economy, because the data economy actually is defined as the term describes the monetization of information created by data in an own business area, and that means that you are within a application domain. You know how to turn data into useful information, ultimately extracting new insights, new knowledge, which should be actionable and which improves changes your strategy, improves your market access, or prevents you from the next pandemic infection. That's where the value chain is. So the data itself, the raw data or so, they typically do not have the high value. It is the aggregation of data, the patterns in data, the ability to detect patterns in data, the ability to handle huge amounts of data, and the ability to check whether your patterns in data here are already known or not. We are running with AI very soon into a challenge where the interpretation of patterns becomes the bottleneck. Do we know that already? Have we seen that before? Is this relationship or this association already used in a decision support system? This is exactly what will puzzle us. And along those lines, neither Germany nor India are very well positioned because of the input that is lacking here, the limited data that we make available. So I skipped that here. This is just showing that the EU, when they talk about data economy, they use lots of industry 4.0 examples, which is all machines producing data. They actually try to avoid, the EU tries to avoid to go to the heart of the problem, which is the patient or the individual level data, the personalized data. This is where the gold nuggets are. It's not the malaria fight or so, or which is 5 billion is globally is peanuts. This is nothing. But 4 out of the 5 topics here of the mentioned by the EU are examples where machines produce data. In fact, the most interesting data are the ones that are produced by humans. And I give you an example of, just the value of simple data deals in very specialized areas. The IBM acquisition of Truven Health Analytics was the basis for IBM Watson Health. And that's content plus analytics. That's the prescriptions of US health insurance companies, essentially records and disease records of people who are leave their data with the insurance companies. And in the US, the insurance companies are allowed actually to anonymize the data and sell them, resell them. And all the pharma companies are using the Truven Health data. And the analytics came on top, but it's actually the combination of content plus analytics that makes a simple database worth 2.6 billion. Another area, more from the sensor field, this is a very recent business news where Philips acquired a telemetry company that is doing nothing else than monitoring, heart rates, cardiac patients. And they have something like 1 million cardiac patients, and they monitor them remotely. And of course, they have pattern recognition, AI-based pattern recognition that detects arrhythmias and other things. And Philips acquired that company for 2.8 billion. So that is these are just examples for rather limited, specialized pieces of data or sensors and data sources that combined with an AI approaches that are tailored to the challenges, to the workflows, are easily producing values in the billion range. I'll give you an example from our own work just to illustrate what the problem really is. We are in the neurodegenerative disease research business, essentially trying to help developing treatments and drugs, ideally against Alzheimer and other neurodegenerative diseases. Last week we published this paper, which is regarded really as a breakthrough paper. My colleague Holger Fröhlich was guiding that with 2 students. And what they did was they looked into 6 different longitudinally compared those studies. This is something that was overdue in our domain because people were always looking at just one study and had no clue whether the independent test set, the independent validation data are actually independent and are how they look, and the entire comparative exploratory statistics and the progression models, the comparative progression modeling. This is what we did in this paper here. I don't want to talk now about Alzheimer's. So all I want to say is for the 6 longitudinal data sets, it took us 2 years to get them organized. It took us 1 more year to turn this NeuroMed data set here, this unmerged data set, into a form where we could model and mine on the NeuroMed data. So altogether, it was 3 years data wrangling, and the entire statistics and machine learning multi-state modeling work was done in 1 year. So again, the 75% of activities in the data preparation, data access, and 25% in the area of the cool AI, as you would call it. So that's quite sobering, I think, and that's where I think we need to refocus the discussion actually, and think about how would an AI-enabled data economy look like in the future. One of my recommendations, now I start with recommendations. I have been criticizing politics for writing so many recommendation papers and so on and studies. But let me do one recommendation. I would follow actually William Shakespeare. You know what William Shakespeare wrote in Henry VI, Part 2, Act 4, Scene 2? Show you. So this is what Shakespeare in the 17th century wrote. First thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. This is a bit, I know, provocative, but you know, the ones who are making us slow are the people in public administrations, the politicians, and the lawyers. They actually, and the law, the data protection law, kills people in Germany every day. The real recommendations, and now I want to become a bit more serious, is let's refocus on the real challenge, the high quality data in relevant business areas. Germany and most likely India too, despite the appraisal of India and Germany by Anandi in the beginning, you know, we are still lagging behind when it comes to digitalization. In Germany, I know that the industry is trying to catch up, but they are still too slow. And that may have to do with the strong engineering focus of the German industries, because they missed completely the digital and social network industries almost completely in the past. So one of the things that I would like really to see is to turn the public administration into a front-running example for digitalization, because the most convincing test bed for digital autonomy, and this is what we want to have, we want to be digitally autonomous, we want to have control over our data, we want to be convinced that our data are safe and that we can decide ourselves on what has been done with our data. And this sort of digital autonomy can and should be implemented in public administration. This is the highest priority area where we would need that. And the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, has shown that impressively in Germany, at least. I don't know how well data aggregation and data linkage worked in India during the pandemic, but it was a nightmare in Germany. Data are widely not regarded as valuable assets, because actually we lack very often examples for value generation through AI-enabled modeling and mining, unless we see Siri and Alexa as those examples. But in that case, they wouldn't come from Germany and not from India. So showcasing benefits for individual citizens by lighthouse projects where AI optimizes transportation. I could envision Berlin being a wonderful test area for that. Reduction and more cost efficiency in energy consumption and improved health would be very valuable. And one more point, I tried to speed up a little because we are losing too much time, but using AI for legal tech. Legal is a bottleneck, which is unbelievable. You know, it took us in the COVID pandemic, when we tried to generate personalized risk models for a SARS-CoV-2 infection. So establishing a personalized risk modeling approach for individuals who can assess to what extent they need to take care of given their personal genetics and their personal environmental conditions and their personal habits and nutrition habits and so on, and their interactions. We tried to model that, and the rate limiting step in all our research was the legal negotiations, the contract making. So using AI for legal tech would be a fantastic perspective for the future. Why don't we have AI governing AI legal frameworks for data usage, for data sharing, for data trading? That would be a wonderful thing to do. Finally, I see the need to put really the citizen in the center, enable marketplaces for personalized data, create a positive attitude towards data trading. We know that data can be securely hosted. This is not a technical problem. We need to establish data and AI ecosystems where small startups can actually reuse data that are securely hosted, and where individuals give their consent to use them. And we need to definitely change the bureaucracy linked to the GDPR in Germany. I'm not aware of such hurdles in India, but I know that other EU countries have a different way of handling the GDPR, and the way we do it in Germany is just spoiling the entire show. Now, we see that US and China have established data economies already, and you know, Apple and Facebook, Google and others collect data at global scale. China has blocked, this is the reason why China blocked digital enterprises from the US, because they want to use and to collect their own data. And they have copied all the data business models of the big players in the US. And India and Germany, and with Germany implicitly the EU, have now a chance to ride the second wave of digitalization by establishing AI-enabled data economies. But they have to be really fast, and they have to be brave. India and Germany, and I fully share what Anandi said, India and Germany are highly complementary in many aspects. I hope that my Hindi copies are the right ones that I put in now here. But in Germany, we have this, you know, tendency to institutionalize things. We even have an agency for saltatory innovation. You know, this is something that only Germany manages to get done. An agency for saltatory and disruptive innovation. India has DWIH, and that's something I admire and India for, and I think this is a wonderful habit, a wonderful attitude towards problem solving. It's a bottom-up type of problem solving characterized by pragmatism, and I think we lack that in Germany. I would love to have more DWIH in Germany. We have, you know, we love to adhere to rules in Germany. This is when you travel on a German road, you see that. I've been traveling on Indian roads, and traffic signs and so on were more, you know, like interpreted like recommendations, but never really taken serious. That is a huge difference, and I see that in the meanwhile as an advantage. We are really good in Germany still. We are really good in research, which is turning money into knowledge, but we're not so good anymore in turning knowledge into money, which is my definition of innovation. India has a culture of rapid adaptation to new challenges, and it is on the way to become the world ranking list of economies, the number 3 by 2025. So I think really for Germany, it's absolutely mandatory to look into what's going on in India. And if we both don't want to end up as being second-class players in the AI-enabled data economy, we have to move forward, and we have to move fast. India and Germany are very heterogeneous with respect to healthcare, business, education, and environment. And this heterogeneity, actually, from my point of view, is an advantage, a huge advantage, if we are open to listen, to learn. And with that, I come to my take-home message. So making a difference in AI, why India and Germany should actually be partners. And there's a strong plea to become and to intensify partnership, not necessarily at politics level, but just getting things done and ideally starting companies together. My group leader, Alpha Tomkona Molil, she's from Kerala. She started a company in Kerala now first, and now she's starting a second company in Germany. This is what we need, you know. AI bears paramount chances and opportunities. We need to look at chances and opportunities, not at threats in the first place. AI is only as good as the data are with respect to both quality and quantity. And this is what people have to understand when they want to enter the field. It's all about the data and the access and the trading of data and the business models around data. In the global race on AI leadership, the countries with the most pragmatic approach to data reuse and data trading will win, not the ones who standardize AI algorithms and find, more bureaucracy, more administration linked to AI. This is all not the path of a winner. The path of a winner is the pragmatic approach to data reuse and data trading. An AI-enabled data economy needs to empower the individual citizen and must change the attitude of any government involved towards the mature citizen. We need to take people serious, and we need to allow them to decide themselves what they want to share and how. And ultimately, at the technology level, data autonomy and personal data control need to be enabled technically and not by more laws and more regulations and so on. And with that, I'm done. I actually want to thank you, and I stop sharing here. And yeah, looking forward to the discussion. I hope you're still with me.
Absolutely, Martin. And I think you totally stood up to the description I gave of you. That was a very, very interesting presentation. You not only gave the details and the contours of AI, but drew out the challenges so beautifully, right? I mean, where is the accent being laid? Where are the issues? And where is the focus? It's great to have an India friend in you, but let me tell you, I'm a great German friend, and we have strengths on both sides. And so I think this is the time to leverage those strengths. There is a question that has come up, but before that, if I may I take the advantage of being the moderator and throw in a question myself. You said that according to the HBR, in the next years, it's going to be the most sexy profession to be a data scientist. But if we look around, we don't really find too many courses, too many modules, training courses, and accredited courses out there. So would you like to talk a little bit about how are we going to upskill the next generation to become a data scientist, but also to be at least aware of what AI is doing. So it's the general understanding of AI and the specialized understanding of AI. Can you share some light on that?
Yeah, this is absolutely an important point. In particular, again, also in public administration, we have seen that with the pandemic, that data management aspects from fundamental data management to advanced analytics, all that is not in place in where it's needed. I've seen now that the Robert Koch Institute in Berlin has started to build a huge AI institute. But these things come actually late, so we have to be even faster now to really catch up. When you look at regulatory, for instance, the FDA in the US, 3 or 4 years ago had 1,000 positions open for people that we would call data scientists now. The problem in the US is that they all go to Wall Street. Everybody who is really good in data science goes into the financial sector. Be serious again. The situation is currently that we have in the public discourse, at least in Germany, we have a schizophrenic split between, on one side, the expectations on new technology on one side, and the preparedness to study actually these subjects. I mean, like computer science, like statistics, or computer science, to have computer science and data science better represented in engineering, in finance, in all sorts of, in medicine, for instance. Yeah, in medicine, it would be urgently necessary. So what you need to do is you need to break down silos that are well established over many, many centuries. Like if you study medicine, you don't study math. But medicine becomes more and more full of data and full of mathematics as a consequence. And we need to have a completely new focus on the education in math, the education in computer science, and the data, a generalized data science module in all curricula of the university, even in humanics. So where you study, social science or whatever, even there, why not? People need to understand data. When you're in empirical social studies and so on, you need statistics like crazy. So yeah, we
True.
actually, yeah. So, and I know that in India, the higher education landscape is completely different from the one in Germany, but the response to market needs is quite rapid in India. That's one thing that I like. So if there's a need for more people of a certain skill profile, there's at least universities that offer that. Whether they are really that good, then it has to be shown and has to be proven. But we need to ramp up with data scientist education much faster. That's true.
There's a question that's come up here which says that, of course, you have answered it somewhat in your presentation, but once again, on taking on the policy issues, the question is that do you think AI regulation should be the sole responsibility of policymakers? Of course, you have already answered that question, but maybe for the benefit of the person who's asked that question, maybe you'd like to share a little bit about how you mean from a regulation to a guideline, and probably tell us what you think would be the best way to go about the regulation, like a regulatory part of AI.
Yeah. So I do not question that AI can be abused, that you need also a legal framework around AI-based services and so on. Particularly the field where I work in close to medicine, which is a highly regulated area. But we see on the other side that too much regulation, too much anticipation of what could go wrong kills innovation, kills future, disruptive developments. And therefore, it's all about balance. And I think we need to find a better balance again between accepting risks of, something being maliciously used or developed. The Google founder said, "Don't be bad," but of course it's a matter of interpretation whether Google is bad or not. It is at least very successful economically, and it is collecting a lot of data and people clicking and using their service as a matter of fact, whatever the long declarations say that you confirmed or comply with when you click your terms of use. So people are doing that anyway, and I think we need to pay more attention to the factual things, not the world of the lawyers, not the world of the legal experts, and not the world that has been filtered through politics. The world as it is with Facebook and as it is with Google usage and with online trading in Amazon, just creates facts, whatever the rules and regulations are. And we are seeing in Europe at least that it is almost impossible to cut back the developments that came with Google and Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we always see AI now as a with a viewpoint that, oh, this is something we need to regulate. No, AI is something we need to stimulate. Yeah. We need to make it to enable. We can also respond to things that go wrong. We can respond to unethical behavior of some of the players. There is always some unethical players, of course. But I think it's more important for India as well as Germany to unleash the power that comes with the promise of let's get all rich with AI. I would love
Yeah,
to go
I hear
with.
you. I hear you. And when you talked about, digitalization in the governance arena, I must tell you that India has an outstanding example of DigiLocker, which is a government program where every citizen can put or share their data in a very controlled environment and still have the data out in the public domain. So I think there are examples like this where probably when you look at the GDPR and you look at India's DigiLocker and you try and find a middle path where data can be utilized in a very controlled environment, but to the benefit to people who need it. So there is another question coming up, which is also linked to this, what I talked about right now. Do you think we will continue to lose control on how our personalized data gets gathered and further utilized? This is coming from Mr. Prasad Pathak.
Data autonomy has been discussed. I remember that in Brussels I had a conversation on cloud computing in the context of cloud computing, the question where the cloud is being hosted, and that was a data autonomy question, and that is at least 15 years or so ago. So and still the question is, do we have the rules and the regulations and the framework and the common understanding in the public of what people are allowed to do with our data, or what we want to get in return? We still give data away for free. Lots of people are posting very important stuff on Facebook and everywhere, and when we use Amazon or so, we agree with terms that where a reuse of the data by Amazon is not really regulated. My son is working as a data scientist now with one of the huge department store chains in Germany, and they optimize everything, the logistics and the purchase department and the so essentially data are being gathered everywhere, and the first thing is we need to have awareness on where our data are being used, and that's why we need technical solutions, not legal solutions or legal rules that allow us to trace our data and to revoke them, for instance. If a company like Amazon would be forced to that you delete all my data and everything that has been done with my data so far, if they have to maintain an environment and infrastructure that allows a revocation of the permission, then I want to see how Amazon is dealing with that,
Right. There was another question that came up about, the balance between man and machine. When you're talking, Fraunhofer talks of augmented intelligence, which says that, you have to use a bit of both. So it's not that there is a fear that in the new artificial intelligence arena, the person may kind of lose focus. How do you see this to ensure that there's a balance between the skills of a human being and the skills of the machine or the intelligence that is artificial?
It is I think a nice vision. My reality of AI applications in the research field, which is rather narrow now within neurodegeneration and dementia field, is that when we need humans in the loop, we need them for expert curation, for instance, of data sets or so. This is where we have humans in the loop. I guess that the perception of the augmented AI comes more from speech recognition and interactive systems, robotic systems, assistant systems, where you have a AI-based first level support in the internet or so. Which will come, but is not really my core field of expertise. The one of the perspectives that I really tried to push was one of my statements was that I would love to see that some of the day-to-day legal aspects are being taken over by AI assistants. That would help quite a lot, actually. That would be a scientific challenge. You know that law is a rule-based system. In computer science, we regard rule-based systems as dumb, not very smart, and not very adaptive. And the adaptiveness in law and legal aspects comes actually with the humans, the lawyers in between. And there I could actually envision a lot of augmentation. That would be actually quite cool.
So would you like to share one or two recommendations that we can immediately pick up when we come to Indo-German relations? You talked about some lighthouse projects. I must tell you that there is an Indo-German expert group on digitalization set up by both the governments as part of the Indo-German consultations. And we are mulling over a couple of topics on which we can have pilot projects where we can really showcase the complementary strengths. Can you imagine a couple of ideas that you would like to throw in?
Happy to do that. I think that mobility, optimizing mobility and so on is already a topic. I remember that from the preparations of the last consultations, because I was part of the AI in Health preparatory team with the German Ministry of Health, and we lost against those people who promoted a mobility topic, and so I see that already mobility on the way. One of the cool things that I see currently coming up is preparing for the future pandemics, or a general, the new spotlight that has been put on public health. So the pandemic is essentially a paradigm for public health issues. Yeah, don't see the virus, but see the
opportunity
that affects really a huge proportion of your population. Yeah, that's something where I would absolutely see a possibility for a future lighthouse project, because we had to learn our lessons during the last 2 years almost, or 1.5 years, quite hard in a short while, and with a lot of people dying. And I think that should prompt actually a global response, and part of that global response could be this sort of lighthouse project. We currently have applied for something between France and Germany, in particular AI with early warning systems, regional, spatial information systems, geographical information system, and so on. So data linked to geographic locations and stuff like that, and spatial mining, and that's something that between Germany or the EU on one side and India on the other side would actually make a wonderful case.
Thank you. We still have another 5 to 7 minutes left. I still see Philip there. Philip, would you like to say something on the, if you're still there, I can see you, but.
Yes, yes. I'd like to say something because it was really a very, very interesting talk, and I think it's become obvious that it is a very sexy profession, and one part of the sexiness surely is that it goes into all kinds of fields, and it goes beyond beyond the mere informatics. It goes beyond that machine learning. It went very much into political philosophy, even into economics. So I found it very enlightening, in some respects sobering, of course, but that is also, of course, it's helpful. So one question that I had, I mean, I understand that the point that we have to first ride the wave in order to then steer in one direction. But do you at all, Professor Hoffmann, do you at all see the possibility of then getting that steering done? Or do you think that we can only ride the wave and that's the best we can get out of it, and we will have to deal with the Chinese or the Silicon Valley model of the wave, and that's it? And the second question that I would have is, you said that you see a lot of potential for startups, that you see that startups, that's the way to take the even limited possibilities for machine learning and artificial intelligence in India and in Germany, limited because the data environment for the moment is not where we would like to have it. So in which fields, if you again had to go to another field, in which field as an investor would you invest in startups? That's my questions. Yeah, back to you.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful questions. Thank you. So the first question on the, or let me start with the last one, the startup situation. As an investor, I would have clearly, on my background, a preference in the health sector. This is actually what we do now. With Alpha Tom Konamolil in my team, she's and also with in discussions with a company in Germany called Molecular Health that is doing personalized recommendation systems for cancer therapy. CEO is actually my former boss when I was in industry, Friedrich von Bohlen, who is also famous in the CureVac context. But anyway, so the health sector would be one area. I don't see, I mean, you rightly pointed out that the AI has impact in almost all areas of business and life, and therefore could be cool and interesting to look in the finance sector, although I'm not very knowledgeable in that field, but the finance sector is something where we are all used to use electronic smartphones and so on to do our bookings or our interactions with our bank account and transfer of money and so on. We do that all electronically. So smarter finance applications would be certainly something to look into, even in the security field or even in the field of fraud detection and so on. So that is certainly something that becomes more relevant as the individuals are more exposed to AI. We will face probably AI wars. So apps that try to cheat us and apps that try to save us from being cheated, and both of the owners of these apps want to make money out of us one way or the other, ethical or non-ethical. That would be certainly one thing. So finance and financial transactions and optimizing not only your health but your savings for your pension, and that's something we observe already. I mean, we have seen in the fintech area, we have seen that people had this direct banking, that digital banking was taking or completely replacing the friendly person or the more sometimes unfriendly person behind the counter, and that's something that was rapidly adopted by people. So I would see AI optimized, handling of your investments or your your savings and so on as something where there's still lots of things to do, and I would invest probably in a startup in that field as well. Now, first question was
about the wave, about whether.
Yeah, sorry. So about the third wave, third way, is there a third way between the Indian, the Chinese, and the Silicon Valley way? Because that's what the European governments and also some other governments, including the Indian government, sometimes like to pretend that we can be the champions of a third better way. So if we manage to ride the wave, as you say, with better use and availability of data and so on, and better skilled people, can we then really shape a third way? Do you see a scope for that?
so. That's actually interesting, and I like the picture you have drawn with the steering of you're not only riding, but we're also steering. A lot of the a lot of the digital economy of the past was just happening, was the sort of ecological nesting procedure, which then turned out to open completely new markets. You're not necessarily acting in a prefixed landscape, but you're generating entire new continents of business, and therefore it's not trivial to anticipate things and to do a steering with a lot of foresight. I think you need to have a sense of bravery, of being open to new things, of open to change. You probably agree with me that we have a problem in Germany on having a fundamental positive attitude towards the future and the opportunities of the future. So if you're approaching the problem with in a too negative sense, in a too skeptical, in a too cautious way, then you will not be in a position to steer. And I think you need the sort of personalities who are driving things. You can see that in the US where certain personalities are driving disruptive developments, and it's probably more about the individuals than and their business concepts than about a legal framework that is putting the rudder into the right direction. So I think ultimately, if you don't try it, you will never find out. So try it. I don't know whether that really answered your question, but I think we would just damn go for it. I mean, this worked in the US so many times. The entire US is built on this principle.
Thank you so much, Martin. I think we are nearing the end of the session, so I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you once again most warmly for a very interesting presentation. And it's only right that we have a few thoughts from you where you have so nicely articulated the way forward, the opportunities for coming together. And let us not forget that this is a topic that is here and now. So like Philip said, you probably have to ride the wave and still have a few guidelines on how to steer the course without drowning. So I'm sure with people like you, we are in the best hands, and it's a pleasure to have you as a colleague, a friend, and a speaker for this evening. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening discussions.
Thank you so much from me as well, and from the DWIH. This was a wonderful discussion. So many inputs and so many diverse, thought-provoking ideas as well. Thanks once again, Professor Hoffmann-Apetius. Thank you, Anandi, so much for being here. And for the participants, you can stay connected with us on one of our social media channels, or also join us for our next set of AI events, which are happening end of July, where we would speak about education, healthcare, and agriculture in terms of SDGs and role of AI in that. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.